Hello, everyone. Episode 106. My name is Andres Gamboa, and I am the host of the Ponytails podcast. Today's episode, we have Kate Raidt with us. I will be bringing her on here shortly. She's in the green room waiting. And wow, man, I'm excited for this one because if you guys were able to, if this is your first episode, welcome. But if you don't know who Kate is or you're not exactly sure why this is a big deal, well, we had a pretty awesome episode last time she was on the show, and it got a lot of traction. A lot of people were able to see and hear her story, which is pretty remarkable, pretty powerful story about overcoming pretty much some of the bigger obstacles you can imagine when you go door to door. Besides the typical stuff going door to door, we're talking about some personal issues that were being thrown at her, and she was just handling them like a queen. And so we'll probably revisit that story, and I'm excited to talk to her about it. So but again, if this is your first episode, let me just go through some announcements, some quick housekeeping stuff. Be sure to listen to this because we get questions about the things I cover at the beginning. And so this is a good opportunity to kind of catch up and make sure you're in the know. First and foremost, on April 9th, we're having a party. We're launching our beer. The Ponytails podcast is launching our beer. We're starting the first launch in Gainesville. We're going to be doing it at Nick's place, and it's like a pool. It's a nice little outdoor area. We're going to be doing some fun stuff. So like a welcome spring / welcome beer, and that's exciting. Also, we're going to be doing one in Nashville, Tennessee, at Lee McCroskey's house. Lee and Deb were super nice and allowed us to do it in their backyard. They also have a pool, and it's super fun. And so we're going to be doing a gathering there. You can come and RSVP for that. We'll be giving you more details on how to RSVP for that here actually throughout this week in the episodes this week. And so you be sure to keep tabs on that because that's going to be a fun one as well. So yeah, on that note, we are still taking registrations for BIZZLER. That's going to be August 15th through the 19th. Again, if this is your first episode, you're not sure what that is. BIZZLER is a party that we're throwing in Cancun. It's going to be a 5-star resort, better than the Sizzlers that we used to stay at. It's going to be a nicer, more like a GRG type of resort. We already have a bunch of people signed up. I have the list. I was supposed to read some names off of all the people that are signed up. We'll do that next time. And yeah, we're super excited about that. We're getting into shape with Elevate Wellness. They're one of our partners, and they are super awesome to work with. If you guys are looking for a way to kind of get shredded for the summer in a healthy way, not like a just go eat, carrots for 9 weeks, actually take care of your body and take care of your mental state. And of course, your emotional state. This is a whole trifecta with Elevate Wellness. And we've been actually part of their program since December. I don't know if you can tell, but I have been on a solid body change, and I'm feeling really, really excited about it. And honestly, I've felt the change in my health. So if you want that too, reach out to us. We can get you in touch with Elevate Wellness. That's Seth Hood, Zane Gallagher, and Joe Ignis. And they are doing discounts for anybody who wants. There's like a promotion. If you come through us, you'll get a little bit of a discount on it. So that's exciting. We're also brought to you by Will Metscher. Will, of course, is a legendary book guy. He used to be the stuffed giraffe for Southwestern Advantage. And now he is helping people change their life, and he's coaching them, and he is looking for more people to help him. And so he's doing a fantastic job. He's been coaching our team for the better part of 4 months now. And the growth of our program and our show speaks for itself because of Will. So thank you so much, Will, for being our coach. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with you. It's so much fun to have like a mentor, someone to keep you accountable. And you really miss that from the book field. And so that's something that we kept keen on, and our team has been really benefiting from it. So if you guys want to get in touch with Will and on how to get either coached by him or how to become a coach with him, let us know. We will reach out to him and make sure you guys get in touch. But now it's time to bring up our guest. Kate is in the waiting room. Here we go. We're going to add her here to the stream. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Glad to see
How's
you
it going?
Good.
I'm
Thanks
excited to have you back.
This will be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm so excited. Your episode is one of the more legendary. I mean, they're all fun, but yours is one of the most legendary ones we've had. And we're excited about it. This is so cool.
When you first told me that, it was so flattering because I know you've had some incredible people on your podcast. So thank you, everybody, for watching and sharing and your feedback.
Yeah, and we can actually talk about the aftermath of that episode because we got some really cool feedback even when you shared it, and we'll get to that. But I want to catch up because one of the things we didn't get to talk about much because you were just starting out was your photography career. How's the photography business going?
Good. Gosh, was it 6 months ago last time I was on your podcast? Does that sound about right? It feels like
Yeah, I think
yesterday,
it was like
but I'm guesstimating 6 months.
October. Yeah, October 14th, I think it was. So yeah,
Golly.
almost.
Yeah, and
That's wild.
I've been doing photography here and there for years and years and years, but never really officially. Like I never had a website. I never really put it out there. So when I first jumped into it, I've always loved doing high school senior portraits because it's really creative. There's these really cool locations that I'd find and go to, and the editing is really fun because especially if it's like a girl, they love like the cool, you know, just cool style of editing. But what I found out really quickly is that almost all senior portraits, family portraits, and all that is all evenings and weekends, because seniors are in school during the day, and so their time is limited. So, and I just didn't want all my weekends and evenings taken up. But what's ironic is right when I was like, oh gosh, I need to go in another direction because the schedule for this is just terrible for my lifestyle. One of the fathers of my clients reached out to me, who works for a tech firm here in Atlanta, and said, hey, can you do some headshots of my employees? And I was like, sure. And so that was the beginning of this aha moment where I went on site to them. It was normal working hours, and it paid extremely well. And that just completely opened the door for me to shift gears and do 100% corporate photography now. So yeah, so I've made a switch very, very quickly early on, but it's been awesome. I love it. And that's what I'm doing now.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first thing I need to ask you is, and this is both for me and for maybe, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who have that desire to go do their own thing or their passion, something that they've kind of always maybe done on the side, or something like that, where it's kind of like a gig, a hobby. And how do you find the courage? How do you find the determination to be like, all right, this is going to go from a hobby to a full-time thing, and I'm going to make it work? Like, where do you draw that, and what advice would you give those people?
Well, I think the initial fear is, oh gosh, what if I don't? Because I mean, we all know, like, all of us who are in sales and corporate America, whatever, make a pretty healthy living, So to say, am I going to make that much doing my creative, artistic thing? Or, oh gosh, I might make nothing for 6 months till I get it started. I think the fear of loss of income, cripples everybody. But what is crazy is every time I've ever jumped into something brand new that was like, okay, my income could very likely go from here to here. We'll just use the photography, for example. Like, I was doing very, very well with my sales coaching business. There was no reason for me to really kind of give that up other than I was just dying to do something more creative and artistic. And plus, I was just with COVID, I was so sick of working from home. I really needed to get out of the house and go meet people and mingle and have that social interaction that we have lacked so much of the last couple of years. So it really had nothing to do with, it's not that I didn't like the job or didn't love coaching people, because I feel like I'm good at it and I could do it blindfolded. The creative part of me needed to do something, and I needed to get out of the house. It really came down to that. So I looked at the numbers, and of course, doing senior portraits, my income would have taken a pretty big cut. And I was actually totally okay with that. But what's really ironic is that within probably 3 months, when I went from the senior portraits into the corporate photography, now per day, what these corporate gigs are paying me is way more on a daily basis than what I was making previously. Now, am I doing a big corporate gig every single day? No, I can't, because you have to have time for editing and all that. But if I just show up and do a 5 or 6 hour gig for a corporate client, it's on a daily basis one of the most amounts of money I've ever made. And it's doing something that was totally risky, and I never really should have made any money at it in the first place, but I am. But you just have to go for it, and people say, what's your rate? you go high. You don't say, oh, just pay me $100 because I'm brand new at this. As long as you can deliver the goods, just you just put a price tag on it. And it's amazing how many people are like, great, we'll pay that, no problem at all, see you next Monday. And it's like, so you just have to believe that if you can deliver the goods, ask top dollar, and you just have to go for it. I mean, or if anything, keep your regular job and then go for it on the side, knowing that you're going to have to add a bunch of extra hours to your weekly schedule. But as long as you're okay with that, and at least cut your teeth, that's kind of what I did back, when I worked internally for Southwestern. People were hiring me here and there on the side to do family photos, and I did a wedding, and I did a engagement, a couple that had just recently gotten engaged. So I was able to cut my teeth here and there with kind of side gigs, but at that time it didn't make sense for me to run with it 100% until now. So here we are.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I love that. And from a standpoint of, starting it as a business, because there's people that how do I want to frame this question? Okay, when you work at Southwestern as a book kid, and they teach you how to run a business, right? But then you leave and you start your own business, and there's a lot of stuff that you realize that you didn't know, right? So what advice would you give from like a business perspective, things to know, things to look out for, whether it's like how to open an LLC, right? Or how, the legal side of things, what advice have you, or what things have you learned that you can share about that kind of stuff?
That's a really good question, because I've said for years, there's kind of 3 types of employment titles. You're either an employee full on for somebody and a salaried employee. You're an independent contractor where you're just the sales front, for a company, but they're doing all the back end. They take care of legal and IT and customer service and, all that. You're just the rep, so to say. And then there's truly running your own business, where it's a one-woman show or a one-man show, and maybe you hire your own people, but you are truly in charge of everything, from the sales to the marketing to the IT to the legal to the blah 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 blah. So thankfully for photography and even my sales coaching, and amen for all the free platforms that are available, hosting my website for pennies on the dollar. I mean, where 15 years ago, it would have cost me, $30,000 to build a website or pay somebody else to do it. And I was able to just do it myself, because there's all these platforms out there that allow you to build these beautiful websites and doesn't hardly cost anything. The marketing, I had to study and learn a lot about. Don't really need any IT. I just, my website's hosted on WordPress. So if I have any glitches, I just, communicate with WordPress directly. So I've kept it pretty simple, and I haven't needed to bring in a ton of big, extra resources. And my husband, he works in finance, so he's been able to help me with the numbers and the spreadsheets and how to set up payment gateways and, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, you just have to be willing. If you truly run your own business, you truly soup to nuts have to either understand all aspects of it or hire the right people that do. So, but when they say you're running your own business at Southwestern, you're really not. Let's just be really honest. I mean, you're the face, you're the sales rep, and then the company is running the business. It's like, and you have secretaries and all these people that help you out. So it's really a big team, that helps each and every salesperson or book person. Uh-oh. I don't hear you anymore. Do you hear me?
Oh, that's it. My microphone unplugged for a little bit. Here we go. It's all good. By the way, are you drinking anything?
Just coffee? Water, but it's in a coffee cup.
This is beer for me, so we're all good. But no, it's true. The only way that you could say that you run a business is that you're the person that's like literally running it from the standpoint of if you don't sell, then there's nothing moving, right? But at the same time, there's operating is a different story. Owning is a different story, right? So the things that we've learned even here in the podcast about scaling and moving and changing and right and LLCs and legal stuff, contracts,
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's not even like remotely taught. You know what I'm saying? And that is something that I feel like is lacking because it needs to be more inspired. Now,
Yeah.
here I'm going to share this for everybody to see. Here is your website. And so if people want to come in and check this out, if you're only listening, you can go to Kate Raidt Photography. That's Kate Raidt, right? And then the word photography.com. You can go check it out. It's also on our screen if you're watching. But here are some of the photos that you've taken. It's pretty cool stuff. How did you get all this set up? And
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
how did you get all this set up? And like, how did you tell me a little bit about some of these, like the story behind creating this website and launching this?
Yeah, this well, the websites are so easy. I mean, I built this myself in a couple of hours. I mean, it's if you understand like how, and it's something that when I launched my sales coaching business, I really had to study and do it all myself, and it took a lot longer. But so since I had already done it once, putting this one together didn't, it wasn't that hard. But the senior photos, a few of them are at the top, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see some of the corporate stuff. These are some photos from a law firm that I worked with recently, and this is right here in the heart of town, and then some of the partners, and then some more what do you call it? Portraits right there.
Yeah,
People just want
this is sharp.
So just some examples there, but yeah, I just if you're a photographer, you have to have a place to show off some of your work. So there it is.
Look at that. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then you can see what I love about the senior portraits is they're artistic, fun locations. There's a really cool spot in here in my town, Alpharetta, that's really upscale and cool and groovy, kind of all at the same time. So it's really fun to do photos there. And then you can see the more corporate stuff is a little bit more corporate-y, I guess you could say.
Or professionally type vibes. Not like professional from the quality, but professional from the look. It's more like they're wearing suits and all that
tie
jazz.
and,
Yeah.
But it's all
That
good.
is so cool. That is so cool. And it's so interesting that now, you're 6 months in. Like, again, last time we talked, you were just starting. This is like you were just launching. It was about to happen. And you look back 6 months and then there's this full website, full blow. You have all of these different cool looking images on there. I'm very proud. That is so cool. I mean, of course you did it because you're a badass, but that is so cool.
Like I said, for anybody wanting to start something new or try something artistic, I mean, you just have to jump in and just do it, and then ask for referrals and get new clients, and then just keep doing it, and then adjust along the way. Like I said, if I started with one thing that I thought was going to be a big hit, and then it was just the scheduling was killing me, so I just went into a different direction, and now I've found my niche. But it happened very quickly, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, it seems that like flexibility pays off, like that ability to just be able to pivot and then move to the next thing is just really, that's something that you're cranking with, and so that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
That is so cool. Now I got to ask you about the last time we were here, because we had some really interesting feedback, which all positive, by the way, but just the way that people reacted to your story, and what you said on the show. So I guess I'll leave this up to you. We can either revisit the story and you can kind of share it again, and like now looking back after you've told it the one time here, or you can tell us how people reacted and then tell us the story. But either way, I think it was really powerful to see how social media reacted to what you said and what you shared. Would you like to tell the story first?
Sure. I'll tell the story first. I'll give you like a shorter version, and then if anybody wants a longer version, just go back to episode 1 and rewatch it all. But essentially in 1992, gosh, I still don't remember my first summer, 92, 93. I had heard about Southwestern because my sister was dating a guy named Todd, and Todd and his fraternity brothers all went and sold books. Now, the preface to this was that I was in college totally broke. I did not have 2 pennies to rub together. I was going door to door in my dorm room asking my dorm mates for quarters to use for laundry when I was really using that money to go to the vending machines and buy some pretzels and a soda. I mean, that's how I ate and fed myself, as just asking for money from people in my dorm. And it was so humiliating and so embarrassing. But I mean, I had no money. And so when I heard from my sister about this thing where these guys were making like $2,000-$3,000 a week, I like about fell to the floor. I was like, I have to do this job like immediately. And I remember her even saying, oh, they're miserable. They're out there all by themselves, a straight commission. And they start at like 6 o'clock in the morning and don't finish till midnight. They don't have a life and they can't go home. And I was like, sounds great. Like, how do I get involved in this? I mean, nothing. I mean, I was so desperate for money that just shy of drug dealing or pole dancing or something, I don't know. I mean, I would have done anything to make money. And so, and I was actually quite shy at the time. Like, I mean, those who know me now would never know that I was once a shy person, but I was actually painfully shy, like as a teenager and as a college or early college years. So the idea of me, like just thinking that going door to door I was just fearless, is kind of comical, I guess, because I don't know why I thought, I guess I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. But so anyways, the story goes is I had reached out to Todd, and Todd said, sorry, Kate, all the spots are full. And I think we all know that nobody is ever turned away, you know, when they come asking to sell books, you know, if they at least have a beating heart and half a brain. And I called, this is in August. And then I called Todd again in October and said, just checking back again, you know, has anybody dropped out? Any spots opened up? Nope, sorry, all the spots are full. So what I didn't know at the time, which I ended up learning later, is that Eagle Blitz, so back in 1992, there was like thousands of people who sold books. And Eagle Blitz had over 1,500 dealers just in Eagle Blitz. And the leaders of Eagle Blitz were like, no women whatsoever. Do not recruit a girl, period. I mean, they were adamant that this was a boys' club, a boys' job. Women should not sell books. So that's why when I called Todd, oh, sorry, all the spots are full, I was turned away. So then there's another story, and you can go to the episode 1 to watch how they knew who I was. So they finally said, well, bring her to an interview. And so they decided to bring me on. But then the analogy I used, it was like the Hunger Games. Like, okay, we'll throw her into the arena, but we'll make sure that we get rid of her. You know, we'll throw the tracker jackers at her, the fire, the floods, the wind. You know, she's not going to last a day. We'll make sure of it. So they tried every which way. They never brought me to any of the training meetings. They made sure I wasn't prepared. I never even saw the sales talk until I got to sales school, and I had been on board for like 6, 7, 8 months. Never went to one training meeting. When the Friday of sales school, when they said, okay, Baylor University is going to North Carolina, yay! My DSM Hayden Flowers and my manager Todd pulled me out in the hall and said, everyone's going to North Carolina except you, Kate. We're sending you to Indiana. So they separated me from my group. I had to hitchhike with some like random guy I didn't even know to Indiana. And I didn't have a car. So I never trained, never got to follow anybody. I mean, it was just as hard and awful as they could have possibly tried to make it for me. But the joke at the end of the day was that I finished number 6 that summer out of 4,500 salespeople. My manager, Todd, quit week 1, week 2. So I get this whole spiel, don't ever quit, don't ever quit, don't ever quit. And then he's the one that quits. And then when I went to train and build my own team, this was the big aha when I learned everything. So I went to the University of Texas. I was following a guy named Aaron, and he went to this big auditorium, passed out the surveys. Everybody filled out the surveys. He collected them, went outside, and he immediately went to a trash can and started sorting. So anybody that put no, like no, not interested, trash. But any female names on there, Jennifer, Marissa, Karen, Kate, whatever, trash, trash, trash. And I said, what are you doing? Why are you throwing those away? They said they're interested. We don't recruit women. And I said, what do you mean we don't recruit women? I said, I'm a woman and I did this job. And that's when he was like, oh, let me tell you. And that's when he kind of gave me a whole earful on how hard they try to get rid of me. He said they even had bets going on how soon I would quit. Oh, I'll give her 1 day. I give her 3 days. I give her 5 days. So I dug the female names out of the trash can, and I said, well, I'll call this will be my team. I was like, I'm not going to buy into this. And I remember my very first group interview I had at Baylor. I had about 20 people in there, and about 4 of them were women. And Hayden Flowers, he was all excited. Ooh, we got this full packed room, and he's walking down the hallway. He walks inside the room and he like glances the room, and his face just turned to horror. And he's like, meet me in the hallway. And I was like, what's the problem? He said, why are there women here? And I said, because I called them. He's like, we do not interview women. He's like, if there are ever women here, I will never come back here again. And I said, I guess you're not coming back here then. I mean, I just said, you can. So, I mean, this is 1992, guys. This was not the 1920s.
Nuts.
And so I was the one and only female I know for sure in Eagle Blitz. But the company at the time was like Power Division was like the northern part of America. And then the Education Division was the southern part. And I know there were several sprinkled in the Power Division, but the Southern guys referred to them as very derogatory terms. I won't say it on your air, but and then I recruited 4 women on my first team. All 4 of them won Sizzler. All 4 of them were top producers. And then I think everyone realized after that it wasn't just a fluke, that I did well. It was, wow, maybe we should start recruiting women. And then the door opened, from there. But I think the emails that I've received and the messages since the first podcast is just a lot of thank yous. There was a lot of female dealers that said, wow, without you, I would have probably never been recruited. There were men who reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, I followed you the summer of blah, blah, blah. And because of what I learned from you, I had my best summer ever. And I learned more from you than I think that became because at the Sunday meetings, whenever they had the top producers, doing advanced sales, like I would sell 600 units in a week, and they would have somebody who sold 200 units teaching advanced sales. And I asked a manager one time, I said, why am I never invited to lead these parts? I've sold 3 times as much as that guy. And he said, quote unquote, because women can't teach men how to sell. I mean, I was told that point blank. So I had a few male dealers who, emailed me and said, just so you know, that's so not true. I learned more from you than. So that really meant a lot. So first of all, thank you so much to everybody who took the time to message me after the first podcast. It really meant a lot to me and put a smile on my face. But
that was, I mean, it's still wild to hear. I knew where this was going the whole time, and it's so wild to hear it now. Like, it's bananas, I think, especially the fact that it was the 90s. I mean, that is a clarification that I'm glad you made, that, in the Power Division up north, there were several women that were selling, your Virgie Sanfords and through the 90s, right? Your Yvette Keisters and, other legendary book chicks. Alicia Huck was in.
But all of them also came on after me. Like they were after me. And not by tons of years, but they were not there when I first came on board. You
were still trailblazing. You were still changing the world. And then after, So I remember you posted kind of like a brief of the story on the Facebook post along with the link to the episode. And I'm thinking, because a lot of our guests do that, they're like, especially if they have Facebook or LinkedIn, they'll share it there and, people look at it. And that's essentially part of the growth that we've had. But yours, I mean, it got shared. I don't even know how many times at this point, like several times, like several times. And then you had so many comments. There were so many people, other women who were like, I had the same experience, after you recruited me, or like, I got recruited by somebody a couple years after you. And I remember somebody said that to me, or my manager said the same thing. Like, it was,
Yeah.
not only were you not alone, you were one of the first, right? Like, if not the first, but then after that, there was other women that, even though there was already women who were really crushing it, still were receiving that resistance. I mean, it was remarkable. And I remember every time I would get a notification on Facebook, because I think you tagged me on the post, and it was like another notification for you. And the feedback that you got was incredible. One of the things that I think is important to also note, for the sake of transparency, and because this is an Uncensored podcast that is not affiliated with anybody specifically, you mentioned that you had told that story one other time, and it was while you were. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I remember this like it was yesterday. So Eagle Blitz always had GRS2 in New Orleans, or in like March of every year. And somebody asked me to share my story on how I got recruited. And so that's my story. I mean, there's no other version of that story I can tell. So of course they didn't know what the story was. And so in front of all the Eagle Blitz managers, I told the story. And afterwards, I can't remember, it's Henry Bedford or Dan Moore, one of them said, do not ever tell that story ever again. I mean, they were pissed off that, and I said, that's my story. Like there's no other version to tell, and I'm not going to water it down. I'm not going to candy coat it. I didn't get recruited. Like, getting recruited means someone comes after you and they want you to join your group. I came begging for a job there. I mean, I was pursuing you guys, and you guys actively told me no because I'm a female. And then I, worked my way into it. And then y'all actively tried to get rid of me. Like, that is not recruit. So when you asked me, Kate, share your recruiting story, I didn't get recruited. I didn't fill out a survey. I didn't, so
Yeah.
So note to Southwestern, if you don't want me to, or anybody to, share the truth of how they stumble into Southwestern, then I don't know what else they expected me, but I think they were horrified when they heard me tell that story. And
Yeah.
so, what's funny?
We got some particular attention with that too. But sorry, you were saying what's funny?
Another kind of funny story is, gosh, this is right before COVID. So maybe like 3 years ago, my husband and I went to this, it was like a dinner for some organization. I forget what it was, like I don't know. We're at some banquet dinner fundraisers type thing. And we're sitting at this table with this couple that probably was like 20 years older than us. And somehow we got to talking and found out that we had both sold book, or the man did. And he sold in probably like the 70s. And we were eating dinner, blah, 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 blah. And along the way, he said, I have a really strange question. He said, back when I sold books, I mean, we were not allowed to talk or interview or recruit women, but you're a woman. So how did you get into Southwest? So I think he was like, this girl started selling in the 90s, but he was remembering all those voices, no women, no women, no women. And so I told him my story. And when I told him my story, he goes, my manager was like, do not. And his wife looked at him and said, honey, are you kidding me? You really participated in throwing women's names in the trash can? And he said, sorry, yes. And she got a fist and punched him in his arm. she was so mad. Like, I am so ashamed of you. She was like, why did you not ever tell me this? He was like, I don't know. But it's just funny how we met these total strangers. He used to be a bookman probably 15, 20 years before me, and then remembered the no women, no women, no women, and even asked me, like, random question, but how did you get into this? Because we weren't ever allowed to recruit women. And he said,
Yeah.
yeah, they were adamantly. And he said, I remember, he goes, when I was 19, 20 years old, he goes, my DSM was maybe 24, 25. He goes, but we just looked up to them like they were gods, and we just did anything and everything they said. He said, which is kind of silly because that DSM really is so young, but when you're 19 or 20, you just have this fear about them. And if they say no women, then it's no women,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's wild. I just there's just so much of that story that's so powerful, and even I mean I'm a man, right? So that's something that I'll never have to face. That there's of course that privilege, right? Of never having to face that. The only time I could ever relate to is like I wonder how they felt about like people of color, like if I was a brown man or a black person, if that was something also actively, or when that stopped, because it had to be. The company's so old that in 1950, there's no way they were like, yeah, bring that fella, or whatever. And that there's got to be a story out there similar for the belief barriers that were broken for other people who are maybe minorities or not as
Oh,
privileged, and
totally. Well, I was
and
thinking
it's
that
so
because
inspirational.
when I went to sales school and there'd be 700-800 people in one sales school, it was 100% white men and then me. There was not a black man, there was not an Asian man, there was not a Hispanic man. I mean, nothing. And I remember when gosh, who was it? Who was like, it was a maybe it was when I left Southwestern and then came back. There was so much more diversity. I remember thinking someone or somehow things have started to open for everybody else,
Yeah.
as well, even openly gay,
Yeah.
men and
Yeah.
women. I mean, that was just unheard of back in the, even in the early 90s when I came on board.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changed over the years. Still, there's a lot of room to
Yeah.
grow, but my first 5 years, I cannot think of anybody other than white men, and then the few women that I eventually, started bringing on board that were part of the entire company.
That's wild. And I mean, we've had several openly people who are gay, lesbian, part of the LGBTQ community on the show who talk about like their experience, because it was not that aspect of Southwestern hadn't really been opened up. And so I mean, at least on the good side, it's positive to see that now, 2022, that is no longer something that is a problem. It might have been in the 90s or whenever, but it's good to see that there's been growth. And I at least kudos to them for opening up to that, because there's some companies that are still super resistant about that, and they will still actively like that's still an issue, whether it's racial or sexual orientation or whatever, gender, all that.
I remember it was probably like my third or fourth summer. So managers used to call me all the time and say, hey, I've got somebody in this city and state. Can they come follow you? So they weren't necessarily in my org, but they were close enough where they could drive, to me. And I never forget, I had someone call me and say, hey, can I have, I'll just say John Smith. I'm just making up the name. Hey, I'd like John to come follow you tomorrow. And it's like, sure. And then the manager said, while he's with you, can you find out if he's gay? And he goes, I have my suspicions that he is, but can you ask if he has a girlfriend or a this or a that? Yeah, and of course I'm like, absolutely not. Yeah, but I had a manager call and say, I'm sending so-and-so to follow you. Can you find out if he's gay while he's,
No
I was just like,
way.
and yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Oh,
Luckily times have changed.
yeah.
Golly. Yeah, they were I'm sure they're not happy that we're even talking about this on the air, but you know what? Fuck it. I am this is my podcast. We can do whatever we want.
I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, the truth is the truth. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, and that's why companies and people and directors or whoever they are, you have to have a certain level of integrity, because if not, your stories are going to be told. I mean, there's no way around it. And I've got nothing to gain or lose by sharing these stories, but it's just the truth. I mean, I think, yeah. So
accountability is huge,
accountability.
and,
then
and
speaking of
it's
which,
good
when
for them.
after your first podcast and I put a link and I shared my story, of kind of what happened. And I even called out to the people by name who were the big culprits who adamantly tried to get rid of me. And I thought, I still to this day, I've thought, gosh, I would think by now that at least one male that was with me at Baylor, who was part of that organization, who was part of throwing women's names in trash cans, by now would have reached out and said, hey, Kate, this is Erin. Gosh, I just want to apologize for what we put you through, because I mean, it's been 20 years. I don't really have hard feelings about things that happened, 20, 30 years ago. How long has it been? 30 years?
Yeah, that was 30 years ago when you got
You
recruited.
think one of them would have the common decency to reach out and say, gosh, I was part of all of those shenanigans and I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm the father of a daughter now. I would never want anybody treating her that way. Gosh, it haunts me to think about what we did to you, but it's been crickets. I mean, not a single solitary person has, and I think
we will
that's
try to make them find you.
What bothers me the most is, it's okay, guys, to apologize. It's okay to say what I did 30 years ago was horrifying. But at least own up at some point and apologize. But I don't know.
And we'll help them find you. Maybe they just haven't found you for some reason. We'll just give them the benefit of the doubt. We never know. They're, we'll just say that. But you know what? At the same time, like you have to know that that's something that happened. You know what I'm saying? There's no way. Yeah. I just can't imagine. Because in today's world, if you're that person, if you're one of those guys, like the world has changed so much now and everybody's so aware of it that it has to hit you. It has to make you think, no, I did that. I was part of that. Right. Like even if I think back, for example, here, I'll take one up personally. Like back when I was in high school, maybe early college, when people would say, oh, that's gay. Right. That was such a derogatory term that you can't, like, saying that today is it's not okay. It's good that it's not okay because that's a derogatory term to a whole group of people. Lots of right. And looking back, it's like, I used to say that, and I feel terrible, and you can take that and grow from it. Like you're saying, you can own up to the fact that you were part of the problem and then encourage people and advocate for those people afterwards. But it doesn't seem like you've heard any sort of noise of any of those men advocating for, the way that women have obviously shown and proven over and over that, in fact, they're actually better at it. I think the company record right now is of like most books sold in a week is held by women. I mean, Kaya Hillis had the record for a long time before Dustin came over. Like, it's very clear that women are really good at this. And so to know that you were actively part of that, like, wow, you know what I mean? At least the ones that you were involved with.
Maybe the influence that these boys were so indoctrinated, because these were all 19, 20, 21. I mean, these are young guys, very easy to be influenced. And maybe all those, don't ever work with women can't do this, women can't, they're nothing but trouble, has just stuck with them. And, once you're a sexist pig, you're always a sexist pig. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that there's at least one in that group that even at the time was like, this is so wrong. And they just went along with it because they were just outnumbered. And I get it. I mean, we've all been in groups and situations before where you really want to speak up. And for whatever reason, you just freeze. I totally get that. I have no hard feelings about that. But I would love to think there's at least one or two out there that were part of that whole, I mean, there were thousands of them that could be willing to come forward and say, I was part of that. I saw it. It was horrible. I'm so sorry. And just at least, acknowledge it and apologize, but
yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that. And, on that note, and also in switching gears, because we didn't get to talk about this much, but is still on the same loop. You're a mom now, right? You got kiddos and they're getting older. Do you think knowing what you know now and looking back at how that experience also empowered you, right? Would you have your kiddos sell books if they wanted to sell books, or is that something that's ever come up?
Absolutely never. My kids will never
Wow.
sell books.
Ooh,
Not,
that's a
not
hot
even,
take.
never, ever. I mean, just look at the way they treated their mother. So, period,
Fair
end of
enough.
story.
Fair enough. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that perspective because it's important to that's a lesson right there, right? It's okay to um, move past things, but not forget them. It's like a fine line, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, I got a lot out of this. I learned a lot, but I had to, and I had to advocate for myself in a place that I shouldn't have had to. And because of that, no way in hell that I'm going to put my kids through and be affiliated with something like that. And I totally get that. So
Yeah.
kudos to you and cheers to you. Cheers to you, to a pioneer.
It's my water.
And to a total badass. Oh, you're so cool.
Well, I've had many people over the years ask, and I've even had some DSMs, oh, when is your daughter going to be, 19 or 18 and, already trying to, and I'm like, you're wasting your time. Don't even for 1 millisecond. Just will not happen. Will not happen, period. So.
Fair enough. And they know the story. You probably told them the story.
Yeah. After my son was kind of in the background during the last podcast week, and he was like, what is that? So after we got off, and I rounded them all up, and what did he say after I told him? He either said, Mom, you're pretty awesome, or I don't know. He said something kind of funny because, when you have teenagers, you rarely hear them say, Mom, you're so cool, or you're so awesome. But after I told him that story, he I think had a newfound respect for his mom. So I'm kind of glad
That's awesome.
He could hear. Yeah.
Wow, so cool. Well, that's fantastic, and it's that sounds like a really cool relationship that you've built with your kids. Like that's such a cool the fact that he can look up to, because most kids that are teenagers don't think of their mom that way. I feel like, at least I don't know, maybe they do, and maybe I was a jerk when I was a teenager, but most kids are like, Mom, like get over it, and then they go appreciate you later once they move out. But what's speaking of parenting, then we talked a little bit about this, and we talked a little bit about your book, but when it comes to parenting and having a good relationship with kids, it sounds like you're a pretty good expert at it. And so what would you say is your philosophy when it comes to that, like the mentality of letting them be independent but having a good relationship with them? And can you tell us a little bit about how you manage with that? Because we touched a little bit on that last time, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. What's funny, the one part of books that has definitely woven itself into parenting is, if my daughter can probably hear me, she's off in the distance, but well, first of all, I tell stories all the time. Well, when I was selling books, like about, oh gosh, I'm trying to think, or in sales, or like having a sales coaching client, or there's so many times like with my daughter, I'll say, and she's so sick of hearing all these analogies, but words that come out of my mouth all the time with my kids that are totally from the book field are, where's the sense of urgency, or have a sense of urgency. The sense of urgency. I'm like, if my kids were to go to sales school tomorrow, it'd be like, this sounds so much like our mother. Like, where did all this come from? Or don't put off to tomorrow what you can and should be doing today. Like, I say that all the time. The story I do love to tell, though, that I didn't even realize it was a book thing until probably we were weeks and months into it. But when my daughter first started playing tennis, so junior tennis starts at the 10 and under. There is no 8 or 6 or whatever. It starts at 10 and under, and it goes up from there. And she was like 7 when she played her first tournament. And so we knew going into it, she was playing a lot of older girls. We had no idea how it was going to go. Is she going to get killed? Is she going to do well? Nobody knew. And so we all know from the book field, when you have a rookie, to focus on the activity and not focus on the results. So I always got out a big piece of paper and put 1 to 30, for 30 demos a day. and just focus on the demos. Just get the demos in. Don't focus on the sales, your first, couple of weeks. So we had this pink piece of construction paper, and I put 1 through 50 on there. And I said, okay, you're about to play your first tournament. So you're going to play like 3 matches. And when you get home, I just want you to circle 1, 2, 3. Don't write down the results. Who cares if you win or lose? Just get the matches in. And I said, because 1 through 20, how do you think you're probably going to do? So you're probably not going to win a whole lot. But once you get up to like 40, 50, don't you think you'll probably be doing better? Sure. So she's like 7 years old, and I'm having this conversation with her. So she goes to her first tournament, and in tennis, the worst score you can have is 6-0, 6-0. That means your opponent got 6 games or 12 games, and you got none. So she played 3 matches, and she lost all 3 of them, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. Didn't win a single game. I was like, well, let's go home, mark the activity sheet. And so I taped it to the back door. We came in through the garage. She got a marker, 1, 2, 3. And then she went to another tournament, played a few more, didn't win any of those. But eventually I remember she'd run in, and it was so exciting just to get that marker and just to circle the matches that were played. And then she finally started winning a few. And then, of course, once she got up to 40, 50, she was like killing everybody. What's funny about that story is that last night we just flew home from California. And every year there's this huge junior tournament called Easter Bowl. It's like the junior version of the Indian Wells tournament, where if you don't follow tennis, you would know what this is. But there's a professional tournament that was last week. It's a big professional Indian Wells, I think is what they call it. And then the juniors come in right after that. And she and her doubles partner won the doubles championship yesterday. So it's fun to see how she's gone from the 0-0, 0-0, 0-0 to now she's a national champion. And but I saw a lot of parents back in the early days with kids her age who actually were doing better than her. Like they weren't losing 0-0, they had better results, but they were quitting. They'd lose 2 or 3 times, and then the parents would just yank them out of the sport because they had no concept of put the activity or focus on the activity, not the results in those early years. And so that's one lesson that I learned from the book field that I applied to parenting, and it's worked really well. So, and there's, I could have you till midnight, story after story after story. Oh, it's another book field thing, but it has definitely helped a lot with parenting.
Amazing. Golly, that's so cool. Like that story alone, like just any parent watching is like, here you go. Or any person really, just take. I just took. I'm like, all right, so, yep, just keep doing episodes. Like it doesn't matter. Just keep doing them, and eventually, by the time we get to 1,000, it'll be a well-oiled machine.
You are right,
and that's brilliant. Activity. Focus on the activity, not the results. Write that down, everybody, if you're listening. Unless you're driving, then take a note. And then write that down. That's so cool, Kate. The business of being a parent, I feel like, because it never stops, right? And so now your kids are teens, and have you noticed in the way the world is growing and changing? Is it you think more difficult now than when they were younger? Like how what have you noticed of like the trends and changes of like with technology, social media and all that stuff?
Gosh, I wish they would outlaw phones, I think, for teenagers. I truly wish you have to be 18 or 21 to own a phone, or at least have a phone that has all the social media on it. Like my daughter's first phone when she was like in 6th grade, it was like a $1 phone, and she could text me, she could call, and she could take photos, but there was no internet on it. There was no Snapchat or what are all the
TikTok and all that.
No. Yeah. But as soon as they get those devices, it is like a black hole. Like they are in their rooms for hours and hours and hours. And I hate it. And now it's like, okay, how do you manage this? You don't really know until they have these devices how much it's going to just suck them out of the everything else that they were doing that was productive prior to that. So that is the one thing that I would tell anybody who doesn't have kids yet, or their kids are still really little, that do not. I know everybody will have one. Get them a fancy smartphone until they are, I would say, until they go to college. I mean, they just really don't need it. They do not need it. Get them a cheap, maybe a flip phone that's an actual phone. So if they need to call you, they can, or if they need to text you, they can, or if they want to take photos, they can. But then all that extra stuff on there is it's a black hole. So I cannot say
That's
it enough.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the statistics are overwhelming for the case that you're making. I mean, it's not, I don't have kids, so I can't, I don't have a horse in the race, or a pony in the race for the pun, um, but but really, it's the rate at which depression, anxiety, these totally negative mental health stuff, has increased by the fact that like technology and the rise of social media, and it's such a I mean, you can't even argue. Like, it's clearly deteriorating our youth. And you know what's interesting? I heard this in a podcast. In China, the algorithm for TikTok and in other apps rewards people who come up with creative ideas in education. So like, if you are, because like, for example, here, if you're doing the stupid challenge of like, we're gonna I don't know, put baking soda in a Coca-Cola can and put it right next to our parents' chair, and that's like a trend or whatever, and so every kid's doing the trend or whatever the case is, right? Every there's a dumb one every week, I feel like. That's what it rewards here, but in China it rewards like if you're posting stuff about innovation, or if you're posting stuff about education, or if you're posting
Oh,
stuff
wow.
about science. And so it's really interesting, the difference of things that the society itself rewards, and what that means for the future generations. And I was just, in my head, I said, oh well, no wonder no wonder our youth are doing it, which seems dumb shit.
My
and
husband and I
and
watched a documentary about 6 months ago. It's called The Social something. I forget the name of
oh,
it.
Social Dilemma. Yeah.
Yes. And
Bananas.
the founders of these apps are like openly discussing how they sit in meetings discussing how to make these apps as addictive as possible for young people, and they won't even let their own children have Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is. So, but I'm like, shame on you for, okay, so you sit in meetings and you won't let your own kids on this, but then you're spilling trillions of marketing dollars to make sure my kids are hooked on it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. And some of them that are on there are still working for those companies. Some of them actually quit because they saw the problem, and they like, now the guy, I think his name is Tristan. He created a company, or he's creating like a nonprofit that is designed to combat that, because he was like, hey, well, I'm guilty about this. And he decided, that's kind of how it all started. But it's still insane. Like, you watch and you learn, and it's like these head of like it's like the head founder of Twitter or something like that. Like, it's not like some guy that kind of was the security guard at Twitter. It's like the
yeah,
dude, the guy up the top. And they're talking about like, oh yeah, no, my job was to create an algorithm that would make it so people get addicted to this, and it tracks like how many milliseconds you're on each picture, so then it knows what content to feed you. And then it's if you, I mean, I think most people have watched it at this point, but if you haven't, you're listening to this, do yourself a favor. It's on Netflix. Social Dilemma. It's eye-opening.
yeah.
And it's remarkable.
And it applies to adults too, because yes, they're going after the teenagers of the world, but I know plenty of 30, 40, and 50-year-olds who are completely addicted and can't get off their phones. So it's pretty eye-opening for everybody.
I'll tell you a story about this, because since we're on the topic, about how insane, like, I knew it was crazy, and I'd already watched this documentary too, and I was like, oh yeah, like I was aware of this. It's nuts, right? And I try to limit myself, but I saw it firsthand, and I'm like, this is bananas. There's an open pickup game, soccer, here in Portland, and every once in a while, if I get a chance to, I'll go play for like health, to run around for a while. And there's a guy. This was bananas. We were playing, so you got like pick up a game, so we're running, and the guy on my team, I look up and while we're playing, he's like this.
No way.
And I'm like, dude, put your phone what do you do? Like, I didn't even know where to start. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I can't even pass you the ball because you can't put that down for an hour of your life to enjoy some like soccer. No, it was, I'm like, dude, you can't even put it down for 20 minutes. You have to do this while you're playing soccer. Like, can you imagine the addiction that you have in order to, oh man, it's brutal. It's brutal. It really is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And the number of people that, like, let's just take a church service. Church is 1 hour a week, like 1 hour on a Sunday morning, typically. But the number of people who they're like during that hour are like constantly, and like I'm like, it's a sad day when somebody can't, or they go to a movie theater and they've paid quite a bit of money to walk in the door, and the movie's maybe 2 hours long, but they can't even like enjoy the movie for 2 hours because they're thinking about that Facebook post, or the Snapchat that just came in, or whatever it is that's distracting them from enjoying the movie. And yeah, I mean, technology has so many pluses, but I just see so many people just ruined by it.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because on the flip side, I mean, we're an advertising company, right? Like, we're a podcast, but like what we do is our sponsor pay us to talk about them, and we're happy to because we like them. We like who we work with, and that's huge, and so that's important. And social media plays such a large role, right? I need Instagram so I can promote what we're talking about. I need YouTube so we can promote what we're talking about, and we're trying to talk about things that maybe hopefully bring value to our listeners. But at the same time, I have to be on Instagram to post on it. And so the thing I learned was Russell Brunson talks about this, and he goes, you have to stop consuming social media and only produce it. It's the best. Otherwise, you're going to just get lost in it. So I had to like unfollow all my friends on all my social media platforms, and only started following people who I wanted to be like. So like this podcast, or this influencer that kind of talks about sales, or this person that talks about motivation, or door-to-door stuff, so I can kind of see what people are consuming, and then that way become a producer of it instead of a consumer. But the transition was really hard because I would go on Instagram to get updates about the soccer game or the thing, right? And it was like myself just going through and unfollowing things. I'm like, oh, but I won't be able to see like the soccer highlights, and it hurts. It hurts to unfollow them. It was so like, but it was awakening. I'm like, holy cow, I am a victim of this, and I'm glad I did that. But it was hard to say it. So if it affected me like that, and I wasn't that caught up on it, I can't imagine what it would be like for a teenager that's all they do is just be on that thing. It's wild.
And I think technology's hurt Southwestern sales. Because I remember I sold books for 10 summers, and I think it was the first 8. There was no such thing as a cell phone. I mean, there was no email, no nothing. And we called in our stats. We went to a payphone, called it in, using a 1-800 number. So during the day, if I was lonely or frustrated, I had to suck it up and deal with it. I couldn't, look at Facebook for an hour. I couldn't call a friend. I couldn't text anybody. Nothing. I mean, no communication with the outside world whatsoever. And I think it was my 8th summer. Back then you had a dingy phone that maybe like could call some phone numbers, but we definitely didn't have any apps. But I remember getting kind of sucked into that trap of, 1 o'clock every day, I'll call someone just to say hello. But then that would completely take me out of mentally the game, and I had to get myself going again. And then I'm like, nowadays with these deals, I know they all say, keep your phone turned off during the day. Well, I would only take a remarkably self-disciplined person to be able to do that. But I cannot imagine trying to sell 14 hours a day, have a cell phone in my car that has every app imaginable, and be self-disciplined not to be distracted by that, Yeah.
Kudos to them. Yeah. Every movie ever is right here. And I have Wi-Fi at Starbucks that I can go to. and it's air
Or
conditioned.
just
But
negative people texting each other. How's your day? Horrible. 10 people in a row told me no. I want to quit. I want to go home. I mean, I can just see it now. But it'd be really, I mean, I know it's impossible to track just technology and then sales. And I think those two cross, and the more advanced technology got, and not just with Southwestern, I saw this with Family Heritage and all kinds of other, I just think, straight commission salespeople prior to technology could stay focused. And then the more advanced technology and all the distractions on their phone, I mean, I think sales have just overall have had to plummet single-handedly because of that.
yeah. And it could be also, I mean, it also kind of can work against you because I remember when I was selling in 2016, it already really started back in 2014, but 2016, my last summer, you had the Facebook groups of moms in that neighborhood who would, tell other moms that you were in the neighborhood. So when you showed up, you couldn't say, "Oh, have you not heard about me?" Because it was like, "No, I've heard about you, and
Yeah.
we're not interested." Like, how do you second approach? It's like, "Oh, so you've heard of me." Slam, like it started working against you, but it's other companies, not just Southwestern, but other companies are starting to figure things out, right? On the same way, technology. Have you heard of Sales Rabbit?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. Like pre-approach pads, what? No, every house ever with names and owners, like right
Yeah.
here. I feel like it's also helped in some ways, but it'll be interesting to see over the next decade, how door-to-door sales, particularly, not even just Southwestern, like Cutco, Kirby, right? How those companies fare um, as the trend, like technology just continues to increase at the rate that it increases, right? And
Yeah.
so super interesting, super interesting. But you're right. The disciplined people will figure it out. They will out for sure. And on that note, one of the things that we didn't get to talk about last time either, with technology, and we did talk a little bit about your book, but then we didn't get a chance to talk much about where the process of writing, and I wanted to bring that up because that was something I was excited to talk to you about before, and we didn't get a chance to really visit it. And if someone's listening out there who's maybe contemplating the idea of writing something, um, we're both authors here. It'd be kind of cool to kind of share notes and experiences of the writing process. Would you mind kind of going over like your journey with writing and publishing and where you're at now with that?
Yeah. So how I stumbled into having a book published is when I worked for Family Heritage, selling supplemental insurance, is when I became a mom. And I went from working 60, 80 hours a week prior to kids, like a book field schedule. And I thought, oh, well, once you have kids, that's it. You just have to shut it all down. Because I had no concept of working 10 or 15 hours a week and earning six figures. I just thought it's either all or nothing. I didn't know. So when my daughter was born, I didn't work at all. And I remember, gosh, she was, I think, 6 months old. I was like, well, I'm going to go out there, just follow up with some old clients I worked like, I think it was 10 to 2, like 4 hours a day, 2 days a week, like a very, very, very modified schedule. And that's at the same time that I stumbled into referrals. And so I had initially just still done pretty much 100% cold calls. And then one day this guy gave me referrals, and I mean, it just kind of opened this whole huge door for me. So working 8 hours a week, 100% referrals, I sold more than when I was working 60, 80 hours a week on cold calls. So that completely became a game changer for me. So I started sharing at Family Heritage meetings what I was doing, like how I was getting referrals, like it was working smart versus working hard. So at the Family Heritage National Meeting in San Diego that year, they gave me like a 10-minute spot right before the keynote speaker, who was Patrick Snow. And Patrick Snow was this big international speaker, had a bunch of books out. And so I did my 10-minute spiel on how to work smarter, not harder, and work-life balance and referrals and blah, 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 blah. And then Patrick had his part. And afterwards we met, and he said, oh my gosh. He was like, do you have a book out? And I said, no. he said, you need to publish a book on this topic. He said, because he goes, I've heard a gazillion of topics out there, but there's really not a lot out there speaking to parents about how to be advanced in sales and how to keep your kids a priority and how to work smarter, not harder. He's like, here's my card. So we followed up, and Patrick is like a publishing coach. You know, he helps walk people through the whole process. So I joined forces with Patrick, and I had weekly calls with him. He walked me through soup to nuts, from, you know, what the title of the book should be to the outline and all the chapters and the book cover photo and the editor and just everything. So it took, a solid year, I think, start to finish. It was a good 12-month process. But what I learned from Patrick that was just golden is you need to have, if you're going to publish a book, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to put a book on Amazon and it's going to sell 10 million copies and I'm going to make a bunch of money. You have to understand the marketing part of it. And plus too, back when I had my book published, which is 2009, Amazon, they didn't have ebooks at the time. They did have books, but self-published authors weren't a thing then. It was Harry Potter, and you could buy those kind of books. But I know it has changed since then, and a lot of self-published authors do go straight to Amazon. But Amazon pays you like 50 cents for every book sold. So it's like impossible, even if you sell quite a bit, to make any amount of money selling books through Amazon. So how you make money selling your physical book is you have to book speaking engagements. And so he taught me the art of, you have to have a topic that people will book you for. You know, if you say, oh, how to fly to the moon, you know, in a spaceship, well, who's going to book you for that? You know, really nobody. So you have to have a topic that has an audience. Then you have to book those gigs. Then there's this whole art of, during your 1 hour, you know, speaking gig, how to plug the book, how to tell stories, how to dangle that carrot, leave people wanting to buy that book. And then you have to negotiate where you're going to set up your books to be sold, because there's a really great place to set it up and there's a really terrible place. So I learned all this from Patrick, of just all the ins and outs of how to have a really great speaking engagement and then how to sell a crap load of books after that. And it's magic. If you follow, you know, his stuff, he really knows his stuff. And I'm extremely coachable. So I followed it and did really, really well with it. What I'm a fan of nowadays, now that ebooks are a big thing and it's so easy now and affordable to create and write ebooks and plug them into your website, is the problem is when you sell a physical book, you can't collect the person's contact information. So if I sold 10,000 books, I have no idea who those 10,000 people are. I don't have their email. I don't have anything on them. But when I started writing ebooks, they're locked. And so the only way people can open the ebook and read it is they have to give me their email address. So I have found recently the magic of putting little ebooks out there that are like 30 pages long, maybe 10 pages long. It costs me nothing to have it, you know, created and written. I mean, I can do that for free. I can write it in one day. I can edit it anytime I need to edit or update it. But the biggest key is it's a lead generator for me. So for those of you who are wanting to leverage a book and turn it into clients or turn it into people you can keep in touch with, the ebook is, such a big fan of that. So so feel free if anybody wants to reach out to me. I mean, I'm not a publishing coach. I mean, I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody watching on kind of how to do both. But the ebooks are great, cost nothing to get in the game. You can write a gazillion of them. You can put them in your email signature. You can put them all over your social media. But most importantly is if you lock it, you can, you know, start generating leads that you can convert into consulting clients or to other stuff down the road. Versus your physical book, if you sell it on Amazon at the bookstore, they know who bought it, but you don't, and you have no, you know, and you make very little money selling it through third-party vendors. So Gotta
Brilliant.
book the speaking engagements if you want to make money with a physical book.
Brilliant. Gosh, you're brilliant.
That's it.
You need you need to like have and this is a good opportunity. People can reach you. How can people reach you or what's the best way to reach you if they want to learn a little bit more about this? Email or Instagram, or what's the best way?
I guess find me at Kate Raidt Photography on Instagram. You can message me there. Yeah, or through Facebook. I know a lot of you guys follow me on my personal Facebook page. But just if you type in my name, I'm easy to find because my last name is so unusual. So not hard
Yeah,
to
it's like
find.
this. Boom. Do that on Instagram and we will find you. And then so here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna do a
In between my first name, last name, and photography, I think. Isn't it
okay.
sad
Let
I
me
should
double
know my
check.
Instagram account? Maybe not. Let me see. What is
Either
Kate's
way. So if there is
Instagram
underscore,
account? See if you can find it for
I
me.
think you're right.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
Kate
Yeah.
underscore Raidt underscore photography. There
Underscore
you go.
photography.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go. So ignore the first one. This is the correct one. K underscore right. And right is Raidt. It is unique.
Yeah.
You're so right. You know. And then what I'll do is I'll run I'll talk a little bit about our partners really quick, and then we can the last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up is last time you kind of give us a couple of pointers on referrals, and that's one thing that you learned on your own that you didn't really get a lot from Southwestern, and you gave me kind of like a masterclass with like 5 minutes, and it was kind of like rushed after we closed down the live airing. So I was wondering if you could share a couple of nuggets for those of us who are like in the small business world that could maybe use some of that. So before we do that, I want to share a little bit about our partners. Did you need to go get some more water or anything like that while I'm doing this, or did you
I'm good.
good to go? Okay.
Thank you.
So let me talk to you a little bit about who and to those listening about who we're partnered with, and then we can get into the referral coaching a little bit of gold nuggets of referrals, and then we can wrap this one up. First of all, do you know Pat Roach?
Yes.
Pat is awesome. So, unlike the parents company, the sister company of Southwestern Real Estate is pretty badass. And Pat took all those positive things about Southwestern, left all that negative shit out, and created a. Actually, we need to shout them out because it's her birthday today. 15-year anniversary since Pat decided to start this company and really like take it on. And so Pat very, very proudly boasts that they are 99% drama free. They are very, very, very fun to work with. Pat is a human being that is worth being involved with and just to have in your life. And we're glad that we're partners with him. If you guys have been interested in the real estate game and you're wondering, hey, how can I get into that right now? Because the market's hot and it'll continue to be probably for a while. Yeah, reach out to us. We can get you guys in touch with them, and they can provide you with the coaching that you need to be able to be successful at the real estate business. They are expanding. They're in 14 different states now, 15 years later, and growing. And so even if they're not really quite where you are, they will make it so. That's what they did with Grant Greeter, who was able to switch, and now he's making a killing selling some homes. We're also brought to you guys by Martine and Lukasz. These guys did my wedding. Did you know I got married, by the way? Since last time I saw you?
I did not. Congratulations.
Yeah, I got
When was
married.
your wedding?
We did. When was it? It was February 8th. I'm just kidding. I already knew that. My wife's gonna listen to this later and be like, "What the hell?" It was February 8th.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm a lucky man. You
What
know
did
how
your
they say
sponsor
marry
do?
up? What's that?
You said the sponsor worked your wedding. What did they do?
Oh, they're DJs. Yeah.
Oh,
So if you have an
DJ.
event, if you have an event coming up, whether it's like a corporate thing where or maybe you have like a really cool shoot where people are coming into a studio, you're doing like a fun shoot, you need some good music. These guys. So these guys did the Freddies, Martine and Lukasz. They're book guys. All of our sponsors are book people.
That's
And
awesome.
they did the Freddies for the first time ever. There was a DJ that did the Freddies and they crushed it. And so we were like, hey, you got to do my wedding. And they came all the way to Portland and they did my wedding. It was so much fun. But
Yeah.
oftentimes you go to a place and the DJ sucks because either the vibe isn't right with a group or they just don't really understand the crowd and they don't not read it well. Yeah, not a worry with these guys. Also, they're book guys, so you can kind of trust that they know what they're doing in a way. And so that was super exciting. And that's them. And we are also brought to you by Cardinal Senior Benefits. This is particularly from another badass book girl, or book woman, I should say, Greta Huerta. So Greta from Texas grew up in a family that was kind of always that she didn't necessarily grow up rich. That would be incorrect to say that, but she grew up tough. And so when she went to Southwestern, she crushed it, probably following along the footsteps of Kate Wright. And she ended up becoming a 5 summer book girl, badass. She moved on to Cardinal Senior Benefits because they teach people how to work with finances, and it's particularly the elderly, late term life insurance. And so they work really well with helping people prepare for the like final chapters of their life. But more importantly, Kate will appreciate this. She shows up to this company and breaks the record. She's like, I might as well just work this as I work the book field. And she broke the company record 2 weeks in a row. And all of a sudden, then everybody else in the company just like starts super, like the tide just rose when she shows up. Like that's the kind of person that she is. And so now she's looking for other people who want to go and make a transition into insurance. Of course, there's a ton of money in it. But more importantly, it's just an opportunity to help people who really need it. And so if you want to work with Greta, huge to make sure you guys reach out to us. She's got you, man. She's the coolest person that I've met recently. And if you get to know her for just a little bit, you're like, wow, badass. So it made sense that we brought her onto the sponsorship team. And so that is all I wanted to mention as far as our partners go. If you guys want to reach out to any of those guys, reach out to us. We'll message, just reach out to us on Instagram, or, find us on Facebook. And then you can, if you want to learn more about these opportunities, or if you're throwing a party and want some DJs, let us know. But on that note, of partying and getting the boat rolling and crushing numbers and improving your sales. I'm curious to see if you could share some of the gold nuggets that you shared with us behind the scenes last time. And then we can close out our 106 Kate Wright 2.0.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing people have to do if they want to buy into working referrals is understand there's so much psychology behind it. When you cold call versus you have a warm, reference. And the analogy I like to use, if you're on LinkedIn, how whenever someone pings you on LinkedIn to connect, it'll say how many mutual connections that you have. And I think we've all been pinged by people that it says 0 mutual connections. And then there's other people, there's 57 mutual connections. And it's just our psychology where even though, and I've had people who ping me with 0 and they're CEO of blah, blah, blah bank, or CEO of blah, where like their title is really fancy. But if I see I have no connections, I'm like, this is spam. This must just be spam. Because surely I would be connected somehow to somebody, And then I've had other people who just have no title at all, or their title is something random and it says, 128 mutual connections. You're like, oh, I wonder, and then I see who I'm connected with, even though I don't even know them. I always accept the connection. We all do this, right? And so it's the same psychology plays in when you go to someone's business or home with a cold call. Even though you're selling the exact same product, you're giving the same service, you're the same person, that when you go to someone's home or business and there's no mutual connection, it is just, you have to work 10 times harder, and call on 10 times, literally, maybe 20 times, to get your foot in the door and to earn that respect. And all you have to do is go, hey, are you Andres? Yeah, your buddy Steve, suggested that I come and introduce myself. Oh, okay. And then that's all it takes. And you have your foot in the door. But I think the biggest problem, especially Southwestern people, is that they never, ever, 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 ever learn Southwest or referrals selling books, because it's never taught. It was just turn and burn, cold call, cold call, cold call. That was their sales strategy. So those people develop a lot of bad habits, and then they go into the corporate world, and habits are just hard to break, and they just keep cold calling, and that's what happened to me. That's what I did when I went into family heritage. I was just doing it the way that I did it when I sold books. But I also think there's a lot of people that don't ask for referrals the right way. There's It's just like when you approach somebody, you don't say, "Hi, my name is Kate. I'm selling books. Are you interested?" You would get a lot more no's, like, even though that's what we're doing, right? We would say, "Hi, my name is Kate. I'm the one talking to all the moms about, homework or whatever. Do you have a place we can sit down?" Like, you're kind of vague at the door without you're saying, but not really saying, what you're doing. I think the same effectiveness, there's effective language that works when asking for referrals, and there's a language, and I can't give it away because that's what people hire me for as part of my coaching business. But that's the art of just learning. You got to ask for referrals from everybody, and all of you, 99% of your business should be referral based, and cold calling should just be sprinkled in, when you have some downtime, you just need to, meet some people. And then learning the art of the effective language to use, and then how to approach those people effectively, and then how to start new territory with referrals and not cold. There's like my course goes through like 15 different chapters and big sections related to referrals. But yeah, it was a total game changer for me to get out of cold calls and into referrals. You literally can double, triple your sales working a fraction of the man hours if you do it really well and do it effectively.
Amazing. Oh, and it's I don't know why Southwestern just doesn't like implement some of that stuff. Like that's really the one thing that they don't really emphasize much at all. I feel like I can't think of a book person who, I don't know, that just literally got up and said, "I did referrals all summer." Like nobody.
Yeah. Well, here's why. And I had this conversation with Dan Moore, is that when people hear the word referral, they immediately think that, okay, you get someone's name and address and you go right to them, even if they're 45 minutes across town. And I think that's where I've met tons of people who are like, "Oh yeah, I worked referrals in my last job and it didn't work for me at all." And I'm like, "Well, tell me how you worked through your referrals." And 100% of the time is they got caught up in, they get a name and an address and they thought they had to get in their car and drive 30 minutes to go see that person. That is never, ever, ever, ever what I teach to do. Whether someone's selling door to door or business to business, it's all about how many quality people you can see in the shortest period of time. It's like an equation. And if you're driving, it's how many people can I see in the longest period of time is your formula. So I always say, if you can't be on someone's doorstep within 5 minutes, you do not go see them. You have to have maps, and then you'll go see them maybe in 3 weeks once you get closer to their part of town. So part of what I teach is the self-discipline. You have to work your area so tightly. And and that's also why when you ask for referrals, you don't leave it open to who do you know in the whole city who might appreciate what I do. It's who do you know right on the street who would appreciate what I do? What about that building right across the street? What about floors above me? What about here? What about down the hall? It's like you get what you ask for. So if you ask, who do you know in the whole city? Then they're going to send you all over the city, and then you're spread too thin. But if you say, who in this building would appreciate, knowing what I do? So it's all about how you ask. And so you have to manage the time management part of it. So what I kept telling Dan Moore is what I would teach is just like how you ask for, who do you know right here on this street? But it's a true referral, not I think they have kids and I've seen maybe some little ones running around. Okay, that's more pre-approach because they have kids, but the family that sent you there, they really have no connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're selling books, and so they just think anybody who might be interested in the books, right? Is what you're saying? It's not like they're and it's not like they're close-knit circle. It's just like, oh yeah, there's children over there. go.
Yeah.
Pick 'em.
But a true
Okay.
referral, like on the book field, would be, oh, 10 doors down on the right. We're on the same soccer team with that family, or we ride the school bus together. I'm good friends with that mom. But you don't get in your car and jump and drive down to that house. You still work the other houses, but when you get there, oh, I've got a referral at this house, But the more you ask, the more empty space you'll have in between the referrals. Because if there's like 10 houses, these moms know each other, but then this mom knows this mom and this mom knows that mom, so like, you'll eventually, once you work a neighborhood or a building or whatever part of town actively, it's just like a beehive. You'll everybody, and you'll have so many referrals, you don't even have time to see them all. But I kept saying to Dan, like, we're not teaching people, get in your car and go see Mrs. Jones, sister, 3 miles away. And he still, he wouldn't do it. So
Yeah, this is brilliant. This is so good. And I guess the last question I'll leave you with, and I don't know, because I know do you still do the referral coaching, right? You said?
I do. Like,
Or
I'm
no?
not actively, because of the photography, I'm not actively
Yeah.
pursuing new clients, but I have several clients who I'm still working with from previously, or they've hired me for extensive periods of time who I'm still working with. But if someone were to call me and say, I want you to coach me or my business or whatever, it's still available, and I'm still open to
Sure.
doing that. So
Okay, and that's good that the people can still contact you for that. Now, the last question I'll ask with this, now that Zoom kind of has changed how, like, it's kind of eliminated. Like, if there is someone 35 minutes away, you can kind of schedule a Zoom call, I guess,
mhm.
if that still works. So how would you, in your expertise, how do you think that Zoom and like video telecommunications has changed the referral game or enhanced it? And how could people maybe take advantage of it?
Yeah, that's what I'm especially during COVID, it was huge to switch to Zoom. And so my philosophy is, if you can see them face to face, that should always be your first option. But we all know sometimes you're referred to somebody and you just can't find them. You don't know where they are. They're too far away. They're in another city or state. And it would just not be worth the time at all to get in your car and go see them. Those are people who, back 15 years ago, you had to just scratch them off the list and say, up, so be it. But now you can totally see those people. So, but it's a matter of, I think some people try to use Zoom because they're scared to go see people face to face, but it's like, it is so much easier to sit down with people when you say hello face to face, because they see
Yeah.
the whites of your eyes, you can shake their hand. It's just too easy because to get on a Zoom call, you got to call them on the phone first. And the biggest nightmare virtual salespeople have is getting people to pick up the phone, and then converting them over to a Zoom call. It's quite an obstacle. So it's not impossible, and it's definitely been a game changer for a lot of people. But anybody listening should not use Zoom as a crutch for, oh, that client I could be seeing who's 5 minutes away. I'm too scared to go say hello. I don't want to get out of my pajamas. So I'm going to,
Yeah.
because getting people to pick up the phone nowadays is not easy. So just always try to get in front of people first. And then you only use Zoom as a last ditch effort if you can't find them in person.
That's brilliant advice, especially now that COVID's kind of not in the back rearview mirror, but at least in the back seat. We have bigger
Yes,
fish to fry now.
hopefully the worst is behind us. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. What a wild time to be alive and try to run a business. So wild stuff. Wow, Kate. Wow, this has been so cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming back
Well, thanks
and
for having
joining us
me
again.
on. I love what you guys are doing. Love your podcast. Just awesome on every level. So keep me in the loop and let me know how things are
Yeah.
going. And anybody watching, if anybody wants to reach out, I
Yes.
guess through Instagram or Facebook, just find me. I'm out there. I'm easy to find. Just type in my name correctly. You'll find me
Yeah.
somewhere.
This is the Instagram that's most active right now because of the business that you're focusing, which is photography. If you're tuning in late, make sure you go back and listen to the beginning. We talk about Kate's photography business, super awesome stuff that she's doing. She shared about how to jump into a new and it's maybe kind of scary, business that everything's all safe and dandy, but you have this passion. She took it and she jumped 6 months ago. So the first episode that you were with us, it was so just young to you and so new to you, and now to see 6 months later where you're at, wow, it's so cool. It's so cool. So you can reach Kate at Kate_Raidt_photography. Raidt is spelled Raidt, and Kate is Kate. I know there's different kinds of Kates, but that's the Kate that we love and know. Underscore photography. And if you guys have questions about anything we've discussed today, you can reach out to her and find her there. As well as make sure you go back and listen to her other episode. I think it was episode 54 or 56. It was back in October, where she shares a little bit more in detail the story that she shared today, about how to overcome obstacles, specifically sexism, which is insane that you had to deal with that. And I'm so proud of you for where you're at and who you are. I'm just proud to know you. I'm just so happy to know you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, again, if you missed out the announcements at the beginning, we're launching a beer. So make sure you guys come out to the party in Gainesville and to the party in Nashville. We're holding it at Lee McCroskey's house. Lee was also a really good guest for us. He talked really great about you, by the way. I don't know if you'd listened to that one yet or not, but he said some really great things about you in his episode. And we're going to be launching our beer on April 9th here and April 22nd in Nashville. And then, of course, BIZZLER. Kate, you're invited to BIZZLER. I don't know if you can make it or not. If not, tell your friends. August 15th through the 19th, we're going to Cancun. It's going to be a big old event where we can just it's like an alumni reunion. A bunch of people are signing up to go already. More names will be shared as the episodes come about who's all coming. But yeah, excited about that. This has been episode 106 with Kate Raidt, her second episode on the show, and a solid comeback episode. Oh man, so excited. Anything you have to say to close out, Kate? Any last words?
Let me think. No, it's just for anybody, whether you're facing obstacles or doubt or fear. I mean, we have all been there, I would say just believe and go for it. I mean, if I was telling my kids the other day, the only thing that you cannot get back once it's gone is time. You could lose all the money in the world and still get it back. You can lose friends and get new ones. You can lose spouses or companies or businesses. I mean, you can get all those things back. You cannot get time back once it's gone. So whatever age you are right now, whether you're 20, 30, 50, whatever, just realize, I mean, the clock is ticking. So if you have dreams and aspirations to do something really cool, just go for it. And time is the one thing you can't get back. So feel free to holler at me if you want any inspiration with that. Cause trust me, I've been in your shoes 100 million times and I'm still not done. I mean, I'm sure in 3 years, I'll think of some other crazy wild thing to start pursuing. But so yeah, just go for it. You've got nothing to lose.
When you do that new thing, come back on the show again. We'll talk about that. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much. Make sure you guys subscribe, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next episode coming up here on Thursday. We're live Thursdays at 7, Sundays at 7 Central. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, everybody.
Bye.